The little girl could not sleep because her thoughts were way too deep. Her mind had gone for a stroll and fallen down the rabbit hole. I too once fell down a rabbit hole. Much to my mother's dismay, I spent a lot of time on social media, scrolling, clicking, and viewing content that I found interesting. It was all a harmless waste of time until a video popped up at the corner of my screen. That video was titled, "Do Not Ever Say Hello to a Feminist." A few short laughs, and I quickly lost interest. I returned to the homepage of YouTube and noticed that that homepage had starkly changed. All of a sudden, videos with the term feminism were popping up on my screen. And looking back through my history, I noticed that videos with the term feminism, with a negative connotation associated with them, had starkly increased ever since that day. The YouTube algorithm had decided that because I clicked on one video with the point of view, a negative point of view on feminism, that I would click on other videos that were similar. And they were right. I was intrigued, shocked, and even perplexed at how what I believed was a radical movement. In its formation, my definition of the word feminism was changed and altered by what the YouTube algorithm decided to be. This is what propelled me into my rabbit hole. This is what propelled me into my echo chamber. That one belief was reinforced, and no alternative ideas were being shown. As humans, we have a fundamental problem with information, and that is we just simply can't have it all. If you close your eyes, could you imagine who's sitting next to you? What about who's sitting 3 seats away? 4 seats down? You see, although these people may be in your peripheral vision, your mind filters them out because they're not relevant to you at the current moment. Our senses interact with our mind to filter information to what it deems relevant to us. And this has been a problem throughout history. Therefore, as humans, we've developed tools to expand this reach of knowledge. In prehistory, we relied on facial cues, body language, pictography, in order to understand what other people were thinking. However, we soon developed language, and this reach expanded. All of a sudden, your neighbor's information could now be your own, and your information could now be shared with your neighbor. This was then furthered through writing, as information can be contained through time with more accuracy. However, there was a problem with this. Information is a powerful tool, and many sought to restrict it. For instance, in history, the church has limited the Bible to its original language, Latin, because Latin is the language that not a lot of people understand. And if the people were to understand the Bible in a language that they spoke themselves, they would be able to make their own interpretations and formulate their own opinions, and therefore question the church. Journalism and the printing press furthered this. The printing press reduced costs of creating books and expanded on who would have access to knowledge. Journalism allowed people to integrate themselves with their daily news, to be aware of situations in their society that they might have otherwise not seen. However, there was a fundamental problem, and that was the lack of sources. Much of this information was curated, controlled by a select few of people. The information was limited. However, we've come to a shift. The internet has completely shifted the flow of information and shifted the nature of information itself. We've gone from limited to unlimited access of information at our fingertips. How we filter this information is problematic. There is a lot of what we call chatter, which is, again, the unlimited amount of information available to us online. Chatter is filtered through algorithms. And algorithms have their pros. For instance, no longer are university professors telling you can't access the library, and no longer are governments telling you what information you can or cannot consume. However, algorithms do have a problem, and that is that they are created by humans with bias, and that they are often created alongside a business model. Most internet platforms make their money through your time spent on their platform. Therefore, in order to maximize their profits, they have to maximize the time you spend on their platform. So they exploit human psychology in order to do this. A study done by USC shows that users have a tendency to click on ideas or content that aligns with their belief. With this in mind, a lot of algorithms are tailored to keep you in their website by showing you information from one perspective, as you're more likely to click on it. Guillaume Chasleau puts this pretty well when he says, "The goal of the algorithm is really to keep you in line the longest." Unfortunately, as a byproduct of this business model, information is tailored to each individual person, and it fails to challenge your perspective. Similarly to how my view on feminism went uncontested, this is what happens on platforms of social media. This propelled me into my own echo chamber and led me to have a microscopic view on what I believed feminism was. However, echo chambers are not a new concept. They've been used throughout history by authoritarian regimes to maintain their power. Hannah Arendt, who's a German-American philosopher, looks at this problem in her book, A Report on the Banality of Evil. She looks at Adolf Eichmann, who was a general under Adolf Hitler, whose inability to question the status quo, an inability really to look through the perspective of someone else and question their own ideals, failed to undermine Hitler and therefore facilitated a genocide. However, Eichmann is not just a general. It's a mentality people have. It's an inability to question what you believe in, to reach out of your echo chamber. How do we prevent these mentalities from occurring? Education has always focused on providing us with information that was otherwise limited. However, a shift has to occur. People need to learn how to process, how to look for sources, and how to question sources. People need to learn how to filter and how to question the filters. And reflecting back on my time with feminism, I look back at the rabbit hole I was in. It was really the intellectual diversity around me. The intellectual diversity in this school, by my peers, my family, and my friends, that allowed me to question my belief. I had access to actual feminists. I had access to teachers who had experiences that I had otherwise not known. I spoke to different feminists. I spoke to my mother, who is a female banker in the industry, and she discussed the gender pay gap with me. I discussed to my grandmother, who revealed the inequality she went through when applying for university, as her parents wouldn't pay because she was a woman. And I spoke to several women in STEM, and with the disproportionate amount of men in the STEM field in comparison to women. These were all ideas that I had not been aware of, and these people really helped me tear down my own echo chamber. And although I do admit the internet is an invaluable resource, and by no means I will let it go anytime soon, I do have to say it is now a complement to my other sources, and I have to question the echo chamber every time I look at information. How do we replicate this mentality across society? How do we replicate this? How do we help people in smaller communities and in their own echo chambers leave? And I am no expert on regulation or how we could help the world solve its problems through the change of big business and internet corporations. However, I do believe that the institutions that provided us information throughout history need to teach us the tools and the processes on how to gather information. We each have an individual responsibility to reach out into other people's echo chambers and reach really into our own. Ultimately, together, not only should we be this friend, this questioning friend to others, but we should teach society to be this questioning friend to themselves so they too can burn down their own echo chamber. Thank you.